This is Glenn Hughes, the voice of rock.
Hey everybody, this is Pat Torpy from Mr. Big.
And you're listening to Music Mania.
Good evening! Welcome to our show!
I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Your mama's alright, your daddy's alright, but just seem a little bit weak.
Scream for me, Brazil! Scream for me, Brazil!
So let's rock and roll all night, the party every day!
In the words of AC/DC, we roll tonight to the guitar bite. And for those about to rock, I salute you.
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, brought to you by CD Warehouse in Gladstone, the #1 hard rock podcast in the Midwest, featuring hard-hitting interviews with rock's living legends. And now, here is your host, Clint Switzer.
Just when you thought it was safe to get on your favorite podcast app, the Music Mania podcast is back once again. After a little bit of a break, been on the road, been doing a lot of college football coverage as I do for my online sports network at gasnsports.com. On the road, covering a lot of Mizzou football, a lot of SEC football, making a documentary. So been really busy with that. Fall is always kind of the time where I have to take a little bit of a step away. And the interviews aren't quite as frequent as they are like in the spring and summer, but here we are back with a vengeance, and this is going to be great because I'm reviewing and talking about the Hammerfall show I saw here in Kansas City last night at the Riot Room. It was tremendous. First time seeing them, first time having Hammerfall in Kansas City, and special treat, I was able to catch up with guitarist and founding member Oscar Dronjak. He was so gracious with his time. We were able to catch up at the venue before the show, kind of like led us down into this green room at the Riot Room, which is really cool, kind of down in the bowels. It looked like Freddy Krueger's boiler room down there. And what better place to interview a member of Hammerfall? And we were able to talk about, just why so many bands from Sweden and various types of metal have made it big. You think about Ghost and Meshuggah and Opeth, so many more, even in sort of the hair metal genre. We've talked about and interviewed Crazy Licks, Hardcore Superstar, Crash Diet. Sweden has become sort of a bastion and has produced so much great hard rock and heavy metal music over the years. We're going to talk to him about why that is, sort of the genesis of Hammerfall, what his vision was in the early 90s, just being a fan of kind of power metal bands like Dio and Judas Priest and Accept, sort of what the genesis was for Hammerfall. They have been around for over 20 years. They are currently touring the U.S. They just have a couple dates left to go, and they have released a new album, which is called Dominion, and it is fantastic. You can see the videos on YouTube for Dominion and We Make Sweden Rock. Those are the two videos they have up there right now. It's a tremendous album. I've just been a fan of these guys. I remember discovering them back in sort of the early 2000s and really being just taken back by their presence, their visuals, the sound, which harkened me back to so many bands that I love, just guitar-driven, sort of Dungeons and Dragons type heavy metal, and really what they bring to the table in a live setting is truly spectacular, especially in a room like the Riot Room, which is this kind of small, just dingy club in downtown Kansas City, and to see them and that setting was tremendous. And they play a lot of big venues overseas. Always see them at the big metal festivals like Wacken and Download and things like that. And their tour is going to continue on. They got a little bit of a break, and then in 2020 they're going to be back in Europe, and according to Oscar, as you will hear, going to be back in America next year. But this album, Dominion, definitely pick it up. You can go to the band's website, hammerfall.net, to check out all the tour dates and to purchase the album, Dominion. Of course, it's available on Spotify and Amazon and everywhere where you can stream music. But this was a special show because most, 95% of the shows we do are taped over the phone or via Skype. So to be able to be there in person and do this, I think I've only done it a couple other times, 3 or 4 times. We've done it with Jeff Pilson from Foreigner, with Wednesday 13 on his tour bus, and I did it with Pat Torpy from Mr. Big only 6 or 7 months before he passed away, so that was a really special one. And Phil Susan from Last in Line, we were able to do that in Las Vegas. So it's always great. And I think Mike Tramp, yes, also Mike Tramp from White Lion. able to do his in person as well. But so this is a special one, a special show. The Music Mania podcast is not going anywhere, guys. As we head towards 2020, things are just ramping up for us. Going to be a lot of shows coming up. I'm going to be in Vegas in a couple months. Going to be checking out Aerosmith on their Vegas residency, the Deuces is Wild residency. So as of now, things are only going to be looking up here as we head towards 2020. The Music Mania podcast, guys. Please give us a like on Facebook. You can always check out our website where all of our shows are archived, musicmaniapodcast.com. It was just a couple weeks ago. We had Joey Allen from the band Warrant on. So just because things slow down just a tad doesn't mean that that you're going to miss many shows. We're going to keep the interviews coming. I got a lot more in the bag, so things are looking up. Always something going on here at the podcast. I hope you will press that subscribe button, leave us a star rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or Stitcher. Any way you choose to take in this show, we appreciate it, and we appreciate the support that you guys always bring us. Again, the website is musicmaniapodcast.com. But before we get to our exclusive in-person interview with Oscar from Hammerfall, I got to tell you about our sponsor, CD Warehouse in Gladstone, Missouri. Guys, for over 22 years, a staple of the Northland. They buy, sell, and trade CDs, DVDs, vinyl, and more. Do not let the vibe of the old school record store go by the wayside. Give them a visit off Antioch Road in Gladstone today. Tell them Music Mania sent you, and there will be a discount, or it's on us. CD Warehouse in Gladstone, Missouri, for over 22 years, a staple of the Northland. Oscar, thanks so much for joining us here on the Music Mania podcast. This is your first time in Kansas City.
Well, first time playing, yes.
Yeah, so you've been here as just a tourist?
Well, kind of. We were touring the States in 2002 with Dio and King's X. And there before Thanksgiving was a guy who lives here. His name is Dave. And he invited us to spend Thanksgiving dinner with him and his family, and we didn't know him. We never met him before.
Wow!
But we were kind of like, okay, he sounds like a harmless kind of guy. So we went.
That sounds like a Thanksgiving I'd like to be a part of. I'm just picturing
it was
Ronnie
really
James
nice.
Dio and King's X.
Well, they weren't there.
Oh, okay.
It was just Hammerfall. No. They spent Thanksgiving somewhere else.
My mind was wandering there.
No. It was just us.
You have been to Kansas City. This is your first time playing here. I know
Yes.
this because, I followed you guys for a long time, and just to have you guys here at a venue like this is amazing. And, you've been on tour in the U.S. for quite some time now. You're getting kind of ready to wrap up. What's the tour been like here in the States? What's it been like?
For us, this is the third year in a row that we come here. We came here 4 times in 20 years, and now we've been here 3 times in 3 years. So it's definitely, things are definitely looking up for us over here. And the tour we're doing now is as a special guest for Sabaton, and it's been fantastic for us. They treated us really well. The audience are not all of them are excited, but all of them when we start, but all of them are excited when we finish. So it's been really, really good.
Do you feel like American audiences have properly embraced Hammerfall because you guys have such an unbelievable following and huge festivals in Europe and in Scandinavia? America always kind of seems that, and I live here and I'm a huge metal fan, but I feel like Americans are sometimes kind of slow to the punch on some of these things, on some bands like you guys.
Well, we've been around for 22 years, and heavy metal, the way we play it, the melodic stuff, at the end of the 90s and for a large part of the 2000 as well, was I don't know. It wasn't regarded nicely. If you had a band that was singing with clean vocals, it was not worth a lot over here, unfortunately, and that has changed now for sure in the last 10 years or so. It's been a big change, and I feel like when we do these tours, we are coming back again next year as well. So this will be 4 tours in 4 years, and that is because we are. It's finally working over here for us.
I'm glad to hear that. And you talk about the timing and the scene and how music was. When the birth of Hammerfall was at a time when this type of music was not very popular. I mean, take us back to that, because this is your vision. Early 90s. Take us back kind of the early 90s and what you were thinking.
Yeah, it was the climate over here was much worse for much longer, but it was pretty bad in Sweden as well, but in the early middle 90s for this type of music. I mean, it took actually until the turn of the millennia until it started getting more recognition in Sweden as well. But the reason I started Hammerfall is simple. I wanted to play the music that I love the most. That's what it was. And I didn't have any aspirations. I didn't have any goals or anything. I just wanted to play great music that I enjoy with my friends that also enjoy the same type of music. That was the whole thing with Hammerfall.
Well, and here we are, and you guys have just released a new album, Dominion. It's tremendous. Came out back in August, but not just for a couple months here. What's the reception been like for Dominion so far? Because I think it's a tremendous album.
Yeah, it's been really good. You know, when this is our 11th album, so you'd think we'd get used to it somehow, but it's always that way. You write songs, you invest so much time and effort and passion and everything you have into them, the recordings and everything. When that's done, you can't change anything, but you still don't know how other people are gonna react to it when they hear it. I mean, I always think that we've done a good job, but I never know what other people are going to think. So once the album actually do come out, there's a couple of singles before and videos and stuff, and you could sort of tell where we were headed. And people have been very receptive to this album for sure. And the great thing is that when we finish, I have certain feelings about it. Like this, I think is good, and for that and that reason. And it seems like people have heard the same things I've heard in the album.
And the videos are important too. These days, it seems like getting a video out for a song on YouTube is really important. A far cry from how things worked back in the day. But you have Dominion, and I think you have you have another video. Is it the Sweden?
Yeah, we make Sweden
Rock.
Yeah.
You have two videos. That was the kind of a lyric video.
Yeah, exactly.
Dominion, perfect visuals. I mean, that's what Hammerfall fans expect, and they love to see that imagery, and came out perfectly, I think, in Dominion.
Yeah, that video is we worked with a company from Serbia who did videos for us, like Natural High for the Threshold album, and they also did Any Means Necessary for No Sacrifice, No Victory, and we decided to go back and work with them again now in the same type of video with lots of CGIs and stuff. And when we were there recording, that's always weird because when you have that green screen surrounding you, you never know what the final result's going to be like. But since we worked with these guys before, we trusted that they knew what they were doing, and I think the end result was really good. And people, like you said, people seem to expect that kind of thing from us.
You have a certain image of Hammerfall when you even hear the band's name or hear a song. It's epic. It's big, fire, kind of like the room we're in right now, just dungeony, sort of.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we're okay down here.
We're going to be
but no, it's. I think Dominion's great, and I think that it's tremendous that hopefully that American audiences are going to be more receptive to it, because Sweden, for whatever reason, and maybe you can shed some light on this, has really produced so many important and amazing bands. I just off the top of my Opeth and Meshuggah, Ghost of recent. And there's even kind of a hair metal resurgence out of Sweden. What is it about the scene in Sweden? There's something about it.
I don't really know why this is. I just know the facts, and they're what you say. There are so many bands out of Sweden, and what I think is the most important thing that about all these bands is their individuality. Because you can continue with, like the bands you mentioned, you can continue going with Sabaton or In Flames and Dark Tranquillity, At the Gates, Hardcore Superstar, Evergrey. That it's like just a bunch of bands from different genres, but they all sound unique in their own way.
Yeah.
They don't sound exactly like whatever else band is coming out of Sweden. And I think the individuality is what separates the Swedish bands from the rest of the world, I guess.
Well, we can only speak to you and your influences. What was it like for you kind of growing up? Was there a certain kind of genre of music that you looked at maybe from America or from Germany? I know you're a big King Diamond fan and Accept and bands like that, obviously. What kind of, was there a certain band that kind of geared you towards what Hammerfall became?
Well, I mean, for me, it's basically the heavy metal genre of the 80s. That's where it started for me. I began, I guess, with with Accept and Judas Priest. And I mean, these are two of my favorite bands of all time. Will always be. There's like no question about that. But as you get older, you of course add to the inspiration pool, so to speak. The thing with me is I don't really stop listening to a band I really like. If I got into a band and I really loved it, I never stop listening to it. I mean, I might not listen to it every day, but it comes back. I mean, of course, I've heard all the Accept Judas Priest albums so many times, I know them by heart. But that doesn't mean I can't put it on and just get lost in it again the way I could in the 80s. It's much more difficult for me to do that with the new music. I don't listen to new music the same way I did when I was a teenager. I don't think anybody really does. You come from a different angle. You have much more time on your hands. You're thinking way differently than you did back then. And I mean, I was a teenager 30 years ago, so it's a lot of things have happened. There's a lot of water under the bridge. So right now.
Well, that's interesting because music is all about time and place and perspective,
yes, and so.
That is. I never really thought about it that way because I'm younger. I'm only 35, but growing up with Kiss and Motley and Priest and Maiden, I just saw Iron Maiden in Vegas about a month ago.
Oh, cool.
So that kind of leads me to this because your singer Joakim is tremendous. He's was not the original singer in Hammerfall, but technically,
technically,
it's almost as if there were ever a singer perfect for this band, for this music, to carry this on, it's him. Just talk about him and kind of what he brings, because when I see Bruce Dickinson, I always think of Joakim, because that's the only person I can really compare him to with that falsetto.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing with Joakim is he's 49 now, and the last 5 years, his voice has only gotten better and better with every release.
Which doesn't always happen.
It's usually the other way around. They start really high and scream out their lungs out for their whole career, and then when they can't scream anymore, they're more or less done. I mean, like I said, I'm the biggest Judas Priest fan in the whole world, but Rob Halford can't do what he could do 20 years ago, whatever.
He should have thought of that when he wrote Painkiller.
No, please, because then we would not have had Painkiller. But the thing is, it's with Joakim, he does take care of his voice a lot. He's been doing this since way before I met him. He went to MI, the Musicians Institute in Los Angeles, in like '93 or something like that. So he learned to proper techniques, breathing, whatever, and all these warm-ups and more cool-downs and whatever they're doing. So he's doing that before every show, like taking care of his voice, making sure it's ready, and also he doesn't overexert. He doesn't do these really screams that takes the toll on the vocal cords, because he had some problems with the vocal cords about when was that? Maybe 13 years ago, maybe something like that. So he had to have an operation. It was kind of 50-50 if we were going to be able to do the tour that we were going to do after that. But he pulled through, and since then I think he's only been taking more and more care about the voice, because that was a sort of a thing like, if this could have gone the other way, he might not have had a lot of voice left, and instead he sort of got through on the other side and decided to take even better care about his voice. And I think that's really nice. It's great because that means that, I mean, like we said, how many bands can have a singer that's closing in on 50 and it's getting better and better with every release? I don't think that's very common. And so for Hammerfall, Joakim has the perfect voice. There's no question about that.
Yeah, there is no question about it. And it kind of leads me to this because, as a fan and someone that didn't get to see a lot of bands in their prime, having seen them later in their careers, in the last 4 or 5 years, just as fans sitting here, how many bands that our heroes are slowly passing away, retiring.
Yeah.
I just saw the Kiss farewell tour. I saw AC/DC's last show with Brian Johnson. There could be more. I've seen Priest with both guitarists now having stepped away.
Right.
It's kind of a sobering thought to
for sure.
think of those bands that you
can't.
And
it's also, you gotta think what's going to happen when these bands actually do retire. It's not going to be that far in the future, and who's going to sort of pick up the slack.
Well,
so to
no
speak.
pressure, Hammerfall.
No
Pressure.
We're trying to pick up as much slack as we can, but I mean, we're ready to do it. But there's so many other variables. Like you said, when you listen to music, there's a time and place, and you get nostalgic for it. I mean, that's not the only reason that the heavy metal of the '80s is so popular now, but it's a part of it, I think.
I think that, just kind of personally, when I found Hammerfall, I was searching for something for a band that could sort of bridge the gap, because I love Dio. I love from heavy metal to hair metal from the '80s. Like you, I'm just a fan of that genre and that time.
Right.
I found Hammerfall, and it was around the time of Renegade, and that's when you guys started working with Michael Wagner.
Yeah.
How important was that for you guys? Because he's done so many great things with so many bands.
It was a very interesting experience, and I think the result turned out really well. But there was some complaints from people back in those days that because heavy metal was very much underground back then, and when we recorded Renegade, we worked with a producer that he's done so many things. Michael Wagner has done a lot of other stuff as well as metal, and people couldn't see through that somehow. They put their blindfolds on and just they didn't want to see the reality the way it actually is. So they started being negative towards Hammerfall, even though the only thing they knew that was that we actually recorded an album with Michael. Not they hadn't heard anything or anything. And then when Renegade the single came out in Sweden, it was accompanied by a video, and that video was probably our most important thing that we've ever done, at least apart from maybe the debut album, because that video. There was a video show in Sweden back then, like a top 10 or something like that, of all kinds of music, like any genre, a lot of hip hop and pop music as well, and at the rules were one video can be on the list for 3 weeks and then out, no matter how popular it was, and. They had, I think they started in August, and then towards Christmas they sort of tallied everything up and made a best of this season list. And I don't remember if Hammerfall was number 1 or number 2, but Iron Maiden was number 1 or 2. We were both up there, and number 3 was Eminem with whatever the most popular video he did. I don't know what that was, but one of those, back in 2000.
Yeah.
So that
Slim Shady or something.
Probably. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But the point is that launched a new generation. Hammerfall onto a new generation of metal fans in Sweden in particular, but also all over the Europe at least. And that was really important for us. So Michael Wagner helped. He was all part of that whole. Thing that to make this happen. But I think we got some criticism as well because of the production was quite a lot of quite raw and a lot of live feel to it, which is what we wanted. But it was also quite a bit of a break from Glory to the Brave and Legacy of Kings in production-wise. So I think people heard that and some of the older, blindfolded guys sort of said, "Oh no, this is not metal. This is not good or whatever." But it didn't matter because we had all these new people who never heard Hammerfall before, or who may not even have heard metal before. Because that's the thing. I don't know how many times every day on this tour, like, you guys are my first metal band, and now I'm listening to this and this and this, but you were like the gateway to metal for me. And that is such an honor to hear that. And it makes me really proud. Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how we feel about Maiden and Pretty.
Yes,
it's like,
exactly.
wow, there's someone that's...
Just imagine, or Hammerfall is what Accept was to me.
Yeah.
That's how big it was
for
me. And so it's an incredible feeling, actually.
So you guys, after the States, a couple more shows here, and then...
we had two more weeks.
Yeah, and then you go back to Europe, a lot of shows...
No, actually not. We'll go back to Europe, yes. Only one more show before Christmas. Yeah, we're going to a festival in Mexico at the end of November, I believe it was. And then we are totally off for Christmas and start the European tour on I believe January 30th. So it's a little bit of a break now, and I think that's very well needed.
Deserved.
Yeah, it's been a tough year. I mean, for normally when we release the album, like before, there's a songwriting period where we don't do any shows, and after the recording, there's also a bunch of months where nothing's really happening except for promotion and stuff like that. But that's not the way it works anymore. You got to be on tour, you got to be playing shows all the time. So the last show we did before the recording of the album was only a couple of months before, like 2 months maybe or something like that. And also the first show after the album was finished was also about 2 months afterwards. So there's not really any kind of pause, any kind of breathing room. And this summer we also did so many of the big festivals in Europe, and it's been really taxing, I have to say. And also another thing was because we decided really early on to do 2 weeks in Colombia, and then a couple of shows in the U.S. On the way back, and then Japan right after that, like in one 2 week period. And it was insane, and it was only 2 weeks after that then we went on this tour. So I wasn't ready to go on this tour. I have to be honest, to say that I was not ready to leave home yet, because it's been a rough year. I mean, not a rough year, it's been a demanding year, I should say. It's been a great year, but also a very it's been like no rest time at all. So I'm really looking forward to Christmas.
And then you wind up in the Midwest here in Kansas City on a night where it's 35 degrees. It's usually in the 60s around now, and it's dreary outside.
This is just like Sweden.
Is it really?
Temperature-wise, yeah, exactly.
The movie Midsummer was not accurate then.
It's in June. That's June 25. So yeah.
By the way, I'm never visiting your country thanks to that movie. I'm sorry.
Really?
No.
What's that movie?
Have you seen Midsummer?
No, I don't think so.
It was the horror movie that came out about the cult, and the Americans came to visit and they killed them all.
Okay, now
as you can imagine, it just
I haven't even heard of it, but that makes sense. But Midsummer is a really big trip. It's like kind of like Halloween over here.
So it's like legit thing, like it's a real
we said that's celebration. That's the biggest, except for New Year's. That's the biggest celebration of the whole year for Swedish people.
Awesome.
And Halloween is totally different in terms of what you do. But it's as big as you do it over here with Halloween. That's how big.
So do you still live there? Do you still live in Sweden?
Yeah.
You still live there?
All of us
do.
All
you guys do. Awesome. Well, Oscar, this has just been such a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for coming on with us today. And
no worries.
Can't wait for the show tonight, man. Hopefully you have time to at least grab some Kansas City barbecue. We did at least do that right.
We actually did today.
Where'd you go?
Oh,
you remember?
Fuck. Yeah,
we
hang on.
got Joe's.
No, it was like the friend Dave I told you about in the beginning. He took us out to Jack Stack, Fiorella's Jack Stack.
That's not far from here.
It was fucking awesome.
I'm glad, because I always wonder, because you never know what people think, especially from overseas, like kind of what your tastes are and stuff. It's like, well, we kind of do barbecue. That's kind of our thing, and it's good to know that you.
No, the thing is, I'm not a vegetarian, but on tour I eat a lot of vegetarian food, vegan and stuff, because it just feels good. It's healthy and
keeps
it's
your
also,
body.
Yeah. Plus, I don't want to. I mean, I know like what how the animals are treated in Sweden, and we have fairly high standards for like chicken and stuff like that. But I know that outside of Sweden or in most countries, it's not that like the laws aren't that strict. So, and that's another reason why I try to eat less meat when I'm outside of the borders.
Until you're in Kansas City and then there's nothing else, and you got.
No, we had a great vegan
burn-ins
burger.
and you did.
No, yesterday we had a great vegan burger in where were we yesterday?
Did you come from Denver?
Yeah, in Denver. But today, because it was a steakhouse and all that stuff, or barbecue thing, I just decided I have to try all the stuff though. So I did a Kansas City combo, I think they called it, which was you could pick 3 different
you did it
kinds.
Right.
So yeah,
I proud.
Baby back ribs, pulled pork, and barbecue chicken.
There you go. I'm so proud,
It
Oscar.
was so good.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a great show tonight. I'll be back in several hours to check you guys out. It's my first time seeing you guys live, which is crazy. As long as I've been a fan and as many shows as I go to.
We've never been here before, so
right. I'm a traveler though. I'm on the road a lot, so we'll catch you guys here and hopefully often in the future. Yeah. It's been such a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for coming.
No worries at all. Pleasure was all mine.
Well, there you have it. Huge thanks to Oscar for joining us. Just a tremendous guitarist, the founding member of Hammerfall, Oscar Dronjak. Amazing with his time to be able to bring us in, and hours before the show, even an hour or two before sound check, was able to welcome us down there. And what a just tremendous experience that was for me as someone that I always felt really strongly about Hammerfall because I kind of discovered them on my own. I was just sort of went down this rabbit hole of looking for new power metal bands and bands that maybe I hadn't heard from yet, and discovered Hammerfall, discovered kind of a whole scene, and since then I've discovered so many bands from Sweden itself. And you know what fans of Crazy Licks that we are here. They're one of my favorite bands from Sweden as well. You think about hardcore superstar Meshuggah, Ghost, the list goes on, Opeth. Sweden is a bastion for heavy metal and hard rock, even into the late 2019s here. It is tremendous. Give Hammerfall a listen, and the show was tremendous. Cannot put them over enough for how great it was to finally see Hammerfall live in Kansas City at the Riot Room. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, the website, musicmaniapodcast.com. Please subscribe and leave a star rating on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Play, any way you choose to take in the show.